Alright, g'day guys, welcome back to the True Footy YouTube channel. I'm joined by the co-founder of True Footy himself, Joycey. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Jesse. It's great to be back on. It's been a long time between innings, but
it has.
Just like Busher and his indigestion, you know, I'm always going to pop back up.
Yes, it has been a long time between drinks since you've been on the channel, so a lot of people might have discovered True Footy this year and maybe don't realise who you are. The story is that you started True Footy with me and then heartlessly abandoned me and moved to Hungary.
No, I think the True Footy production
guru
for about a week there before I was like, oh, it's actually really hard to edit a video.
Today we are going to be doing a non-football video, Joycey, which is something that we occasionally tease out on True Footy, especially during the summer.
I really didn't know there was such a thing in life as non-football chat.
I know, yeah. We do struggle with it. But in today's video, we're going to be recalling our favourite Australian cricket summer memories because obviously it's the heart of cricket season right now.
Yep.
And that must be why all my views have died in the arse.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a little bit of a crack at just reliving some of the best memories of Australian cricket. Are you a decent cricket fan?
I feel like I've always drifted in and out, but I think anytime there's a big test, anytime there's an Ashes or a big test in Australia, I've always been into it. And I do really enjoy my cricket.
Yeah, that's cool. I used to play cricket. Was actually my sport of choice up until about the age of 16, I think, to be honest, or maybe even 18 actually. So I did once upon a time follow it religiously, but these days, since my love for West Coast really took over, cricket's really taken a back seat. I'm pretty much one of those guys who liked the Scorchers up until they last won the title, and then since then I think I've actually not watched a BBL game in 2 years.
It's a sport you like players and you like squad. I find myself being drawn back into it now that there's a few young guys like Pekovsky and Green coming into the test side. I'm kind of like drawn to that because I like to follow a squad through their sort of natural progression, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There was a time there as well in like the early teens the 2010s, the early 2010s there, where the Australian team was just El Stanko and didn't have a lot of likeable characters, whereas nowadays you got guys like Smith and Labuschagne in particular, guys like you can sort of see why people support them and then support the team, especially now the team's not bad anymore.
Growing up in the 90s and 2000s, I think you were probably the same as me. You take it for granted, how good Australia was during that era, and maybe the 2010s was like a good grounding. And it actually makes you though appreciate like the big wins and the good games and the good players a bit more, I think.
We will progress with the video and we're going to relive some of our favourite Australian cricket summer memories. I'm going to start us off, Joyce.
Okay.
Now, I was a big Steve Waugh fan, which is kind of random because he's not a player that sort of like kids my age like really were fascinated.
You must have been very young.
Oh yeah, so he retired in like 04. Okay. So I was 10 when he retired because I got a late birthday. The story for this was like the 03-04 Ashes in Australia. We were winning the series 4-0 and Steve Waugh was captain. Now the team was ridiculously good, but it was getting to the end of his career and the selectors were looking at him and saying, you're not actually guaranteed to keep your spot even though you're captain. I think he was about 36 or something years old. So a lot of pressure on him personally, playing in his home state at the SCG. And he comes in for, I think it's the first innings of Australia's batting after England's batted first. He gets to 47 by the finals drinks breaks. And then suddenly there's an outside chance of him making a century before the end of the day. Of course, it gets down to the very last over. Richard Dawson's bowling some very gentle off spin towards him. And it looks very dicey as to whether he's going to get his century before stumps. Then there's the final ball of the day. He's on strike, 98 not out. And I remember Nasser Hussain's absolutely toying with him and Richard Dawson and he are just like chatting shit, literally pretending to make up tactics just to like keep him waiting. And eventually he sends it down, he smashes it through the covers and makes his century on the last day. And I think a lot of cricket fans our age and older will know exactly what that day was.
Yes.
And, that was long.
I think looking back, that might be my first memory.
Really?
Of cricket, watching cricket. I think I remember Steve Waugh was my granddad's favourite player.
Yeah.
I remember being at his place and I think that might have been my first memory.
That was my first Ashes series I watched, which would have been very early on.
There you go. My first memory is very similar. It's got to do with players getting towards the back end of their career, and it was the day that Justin Langer, Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne retired. Three greats of the game. Like I said before, I think maybe we took for granted the players that they were, especially Warne and McGrath, but As a kid, I always had like a real fondness for Justin Langer, and I think that was because of the real like warrior like hard nature that he had. You could tell he was a battler in a team full of guys that were just, born with talent. He was the grinder, he was the warrior. He still is my favourite cricketer, I think, ever. Just, wonderful memories of those three playing. And I think when they retired, even though I was very young, I think 2006, so I was...
06, 07 was the finals.
12, I knew, and I'm sure you did too, that it really was the end of like something great,
True.
Something the world hadn't seen before, yeah.
Yeah, and we won the final test, that fifth test, to go 5-0, and Langer and Hayden were at the crease to make it a 10-wicket win as well.
That's right,
yeah. That was a perfect Ashes series.
Yeah.
My next favourite memory is actually Matthew Hayden, speak of the devil, when he launched a mammoth 380 against Zimbabwe in a test match at, I think it was the Wacker in Perth. I remember being a kid and like watching him, and then the next day I had to go to Harvey Norman with... this was before like you could check the score on your phone, and I'd be like watching the cricket at Harvey Norman on the big screens, and I'd be like, Jesus, this bloke's still in. But yeah, obviously that was at the time a record. He beat Brian Lara's 375, which was set 10 years previous.
Yeah.
So for a very brief period, Matthew Hayden had the world record all-time test score of 380 against a paltry Zimbabwe team, which, struggled to even go 5 days with an Australian team.
Yeah.
And so we got to 735 declared. Yep. So he scored 380, and then of course, like 6 months later, Brian Lara beat that record again and scored 400 against England.
Unbelievable, isn't it? You really do have to pay credit to score 380 runs. To score anything above 150 is like amazing.
Yeah.
So to score 380 even against a team like Zimbabwe is just absolutely nuts.
For sure. And Matthew Hayden actually also held the Australian record for highest ODI score for individual batsmen for a while as well. I think Shane Watson might have it now, but I think he scored something like 183 off the top of my head. So for a while there, he held both records.
Well, Jesse, my second memory is about a much maligned player in Australia, Michael Clarke. I got to admit, for large periods, I wasn't a big fan, but I think what he did on the pitch, it allowed him to win my favour because we saw just what a talent he was. Everyone knew how good he was as a batsman, but this one particular day, I remember India were batting, looking like it's heading for a draw. I think India 6 wickets down with probably something like 10 overs remaining. A team full of great bowlers, great individual bowlers. And Ricky Ponting threw the ball to Michael Clarke. A few people were probably thinking, oh, this is a bit weird. And it goes to show the brilliance of Ricky Ponting as well, this move. Clarke took 3 wickets in his last 4 balls to win Australia the match. I still remember a very young, I think he was a teenage Ishant Sharma coming out at the end, and he looked like he was actually shaking at the crease. I felt kind of sorry for him.
Yeah.
As much as you hate Michael Clarke, you just cannot deny his cricket genius and talent.
Yeah, he was a weird sort of player. He was just brilliant. I think they used to say Bradman used to have a bit of a knack for getting wickets as well, even though he was an absolute shithouse bowler, and I wouldn't compare Clarke to a Donald Bradman, but he had the same knack for coming on and just taking wickets. I think he took 6 for 9 in India once, and then a triple century and an extensive batting record as well. So yeah, I remember that day as well. That was sick.
Maybe similar to Steve Smith, and as a fan, you watch it saying, when they're the captain, saying you should bowl yourself. We've seen you bowl, we've seen you do amazing, but they never seem to do it. They got to trust the bowlers to do the job, so you understand that.
Yeah. But Clarkey won multiple games of cricket with the ball as well, which is crazy, yeah. So my next memory is the 2010 semi-final of the 2020 World Cup. Now, this is something Australians like to forget is a thing, the World 2020, because I don't think we've ever conquered it. No. But anyway, we were in the semi-final against Pakistan. Pakistan sent an imposing 192. David Warne got out on the second ball of our reply innings, and we, when that happens, and 2020 is such a momentum game, it's looking dicey, especially when it's David Warner.
Yeah.
But of course, we hung in there, and with 3 overs to go, we needed 50 runs to win. So the game looked, especially back in 2010,
3 overs.
Yeah, 3 overs. We needed 50 runs to win, and Michael Hussey comes out, hits 50 off 22 balls. Well, he gets to 50 and 22 balls, ends up on 60 off 24. And in the final over, we needed 18 runs to win.
Yep.
So that's 32 off the first 2. Mitchell Johnson's on strike as well, so Hussey's not even on strike. Johnson gets the single off the first ball, and then Hussey hits like 3 sixes and a 4 in that time and win with a ball to spare. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is probably the biggest comeback win I've ever seen in a game of cricket, and Michael Hussey inspired it all.
Michael Hussey, what a legend. I really wanted to have him in my memories of 5. We talked about him before. He made his test debut at 30, and for him to be named Mr. Cricket, and he didn't even make his debut until he was 30, just shows the absolute phenomenon, the powerhouse that Mike Hussey was.
Yeah, he was. It's crazy the impact he had for a guy that debuted that late, both with in the shorter forms and in tests. He was such a good test cricketer, and then could obviously smack a team off the park as well in shorter format.
Well, Jesse, my next memory is of Mitchell Johnson. Speaking of the man who got that single there.
Yes, it all ties in.
No one can forget his ashes against England in 2013, 2014. I think before that series, Johnson spent a lot of time out of the game. He really burst onto the scene as a young guy, but then spent a few years out in the wilderness. He really struggled with his accuracy, with his bowling technique. I think he had a few injuries as well. Most of the Australian public pretty much thought he was dead and gone.
Yeah, I thought he was rubbish. I'll put my hand up and say I got that wrong.
Yeah. And I'm sure the English coming to Australia barely would have put a thought into worrying about Mitchell Johnson. I think the first test he actually didn't do amazing. He didn't get a wicket in his first spell, but he got, I think, maybe 62 runs, and I think maybe that gave him a little bit of confidence and security that he had kind of cemented his spot for the series. After that, he absolutely exploded. I think this is by far and away the best series bowling I've ever seen. The intimidation, the pace, the energy was just unreal. And I think he got 37 wickets for the series at an average of 13, which just goes to show like how immense and powerful he was. The only batsman I saw who I thought even came close to ending the series equal with him was Kevin Peterson, but he just destroyed the English Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah, Mitch Johnson was one of those players who always had the talent, but he was a real confidence player, you could see. And in that series, he was untouchable. Like, there was no one who could knock him off the top of his game.
Yeah.
And almost like single-handedly... Well, we won that series 5-0, and that we weren't that much better than England. It was just such his dominance that really led us to that victory.
Yeah, sure.
Next up, we're going through a list of some very incredible individual performances, but this could go close to topping the list. I'm going to go back to the 2003 World Cup, which was probably one of my favourite... that's by far my favourite World Cup. Andrew Bickle against England in, I believe it was either a Super 6 match or a group match. Doesn't really matter. We restricted them to 8 for 204, I want to say. Back then, 204 was a defendable total. So it wasn't like we skittled them or anything like that. But Andrew Bickle had 7 for 20, and he was very much the next bowler. I mean, he had guys like McGrath. Warne wasn't in that series because of his shoulder and the doping thing. But McGrath was in that team, Gillespie was in that team, and Bickle was sort of like almost like a fringe player.
Yeah.
And his performance in that World Cup was phenomenal. So he took 7 for 20 with the ball.
Yeah.
And then chasing, Australia slumped to 8 for 135. So we needed 70 to win, 2 wickets in hand. Michael Bevan saved the day for us on many occasions in that Australian cricket team. But thankfully, he had someone like Andrew Bickle who was having the game of his life. Bevan scored like 74 not out or something like that. But Bickle scored 34 not out himself, including a 6. And we won with 2 balls to spare. And that's been probably the single greatest one-day performance I've ever seen.
And not someone you really hear much about these days, Bickle. You know, when you're little, you're sort of connecting the dots about who players are in teams when you're very little. I actually thought Bickle and Bevan were the same player. And I literally thought this guy was like the best player in the world by an absolute margin.
Ends.
Yeah. He's taking wickets and he's like scoring centuries, and he's like one of the best ODI players of all time. Okay, my next great memory is of another much maligned. I think all of my guys are
you love an underdog, don't you?
I do, yeah. Maybe it's something about cricket and underdogs. But this is Shane Watson, an absolute powerhouse. I remember he sort of debuted or was coming onto the scene just when I was really getting into cricket. Probably around the 2005, sort of maybe 2004, 2003 time period. Had a lot of injuries, but I remember everyone used to talk about this guy, Shane Watson, about how talented he was. It took him so long to get his first test century. I think the 4 innings before, he was out in the 90s or the late 80s. So it was this huge the whole of Australia was wanting this guy to succeed. Everyone could see his talent. I think in Adelaide against maybe Pakistan, he scored his first century, and it's just great to sort of see this player who I'd followed as a youngster and really rated then come onto the Australian scene and score that century. I think, I think we've spoken many times about we rate Shane very highly, and he's actually one of the best white ball cricketers ever to play for Australia, but just couldn't maybe 100% fulfill his talent in the Test arena.
Yeah, for sure. I think injury did play a large part in that his career. He had a crook back, which precluded him from bowling. I think he broke into the side as like a bowling all-rounder originally, and then ended up opening the batting at Test level. But I do remember there was a time frame where he would open the batting, be our fifth bowler in theory, but he was genuinely our best bowler as well. And when he came out to bowl, that was when you felt like we had a sniff of getting a wicket. He was an incredible
He's a very
player.
Economical bowler as well, which is kind of underrated.
Yeah, he really took the pace off his bowling because of his back injury, and as a result, his swing just got more prodigious, and he was so hard to play.
Yep.
Next up, we have my final memory, and that is one that I actually treasure, and a lot of people might not remember, but it was the first hat-trick I'd ever seen at cricket, in international cricket or in any format, really. Brett Lee was my favourite player for a while there, around that's when Steve Waugh sort of retired. But in the 2003 World Cup, we were playing against Kenya. Again, they were a team that shouldn't have given us trouble, but they did. And they actually went all the way to a semi-final as well, in that, which is bizarre. And I think it's like the second or third over of the day. And Brett Lee is bowling, and the first wicket is a bit heinous. He actually bowls it, and it goes into the Kenyan guy's elbow, like hits him right on the funny bone, like breaks his elbow and like falls into the bails.
Oh my God.
So that was pretty horrific, but it was the start of 3 wickets in a row. And as a man who's taken a hat trick at, I'm just going to slip that in there. I always wanted to see a hat trick take place, and it always really, really excited me. So I think the second one was caught at slip, and then the third one was clean bowled with a ripper of a Yorker, and we nearly lost the game to Kenya. But Brett Lee's hat trick will live long in the memory.
He really was just like a superstar, wasn't he, in Australia? Good memories of watching him. I think I've also taken a hat trick. Actually bowled out Daniel Busher in the Murdoch by the swimming pool 3 balls in a row, but because he hasn't scored a run, we let him stay in.
But Brett Lee was a prodigiously good player, and I do wonder what Kevin Spacey is up to these days.
My last one, and again a much maligned guy, but again cannot deny his talent, David Warne. So when he first came onto the scene, I remember he played for Australia, and he hadn't played many first-class games at all at T20 level, and a lot of people, including myself, were just kind of like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And he just took the T20, literally the international T20 by storm.
I think he actually got picked on the back of his performance for like the Hong Kong Sixers. They used to have like this 6-over or 6-a-side tournament in Hong Kong.
Yep.
And he was so good in that he got a crack.
Yes. And I remember all the commentators, all the pundits said, yeah, he's amazing, but he could never be a Test batsman. He's only a T20 guy. He's too aggressive, and boy, has he proved them wrong. Particularly this one day, 2011 against New Zealand. So David Warne scored 123, not out. The pitch was terrible. There was only 3 scores in that whole game above 50, and the average team score across the 4 innings was 180. Which just goes to show like how far above any other player he was on the pitch. And that was really an innings that asserted himself as not just a T20 batsman, but as a Test batsman. And he's gone on to, he's probably one of the top 10 to 20 Australian batsmen ever.
It's funny when you say that he scored that 123, because there's actually I'm pretty sure there's an ICC algorithm when they do their rankings that calculates the value of an innings.
Yep.
And I remember there was a game in the 90s, I remember reading about it. Steve Waugh was playing against the West Indies, and the pitch was so cooked, like the ball was like bouncing, like sometimes it would bounce at head height, and then at the same length it would bounce and just like skid past the bails, and it would be like impossible to play. He scored 64, and I think in the rankings they calculated it was equivalent to scoring 204 based on the conditions. So that sounds like a similar story to David Warne there. Well, there you go. There is our top 10 Australian cricket memories. There's a few we've left out there. The amazing Adelaide comes to mind. Australia's actually won a Cricket World Cup on home soil as well, in that as well. But as Australian cricket fans, we're very blessed. Making this list was not easy.
Extremely blessed. There was just so many moments to choose from, and I think maybe we could do another video soon about our favourite foreign team memories.
Yes. Cool, Joycey. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up here and rejoin the True Footy team for another video. I'm sure it won't be long. Well, it may be long until your next time up here, but it was damn good while you were here.
Yes. No. Thank you, Jesse. It's always good to be back on the True Footy podcast, #1 podcast in Australia for footy
and farts.
And exactly. It's that a unique combination that no one else has really got, apart from the Outback Hoops experience.
No, that's basketball and burps.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Footy and farts, basketball and burps.
Okay, fair enough. But no, it's been a pleasure, Jesse, as always, and hopefully be back on soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.
See ya.